Are you ready for the most shocking Apple rumor in years? Picture this: a foldable iPhone that is actually easy to fix. Yes, you heard that right. Apple is reportedly building a folding phone that won't require engineering degree and a prayer to repair. For years, foldable phones have been a complete nightmare for durability. One piece of dust inside the hinge, and boom, your $2,000 device becomes a very expensive paperweight. Samsung spent years getting roasted for this, especially with the original Galaxy Fold disaster where screens died because people peeled off a layer that looked exactly like a temporary screen protector. It was a total catastrophe. But Apple has been sitting back, watching the competition make mistakes, and learning from them. Now, they are finally gearing up to enter the foldable market, and they want to make sure their device is incredibly tough and surprisingly modular. This massive shift in engineering philosophy seems to have the signature of John Ternus all over it. As he steps into a major leadership role, his focus on practical engineering and repairability is starting to show. We already saw glimpses of this with the MacBook Neo, which was surprisingly repair-friendly by Apple standards. Of course, we also have to acknowledge that the European Union is constantly breathing down Apple's neck about repairability laws. Apple probably has an entire office in Cupertino dedicated just to figuring out what Europe wants next. But honestly, whether this change is coming from internal leadership or external pressure, the consumer wins. A repairable foldable phone is exactly what the tech world needs right now to make normal people actually trust the technology. Right now, average consumers still view foldables as experimental gadgets for rich people who enjoy anxiety. Tech reviewers love to film themselves unfolding these devices in slow motion with dramatic ambient music playing, acting like they just discovered fire. But for regular people, bending the most fragile part of a smartphone every single day feels terrifying. Apple waited this long because they refuse to release a product until they feel it meets their standards of daily reliability. According to recent reports from insiders, the internal layout of this foldable iPhone is incredibly clean and logical. Instead of running fragile cables awkwardly across the moving hinge for the volume buttons, Apple has reportedly moved those buttons to the top edge of the device. It sounds like a tiny change, but it completely simplifies the internal architecture, freeing up precious space for the real priorities, the battery and the display. Foldable phones are an absolute nightmare to design internally. Engineers have to cram in two separate batteries, complex hinge mechanisms, flexible display layers, advanced cooling systems, multiple cameras, wireless charging coils, and antenna lines. It is a miracle these things even close. By optimizing the internal stacking, Apple is heavily prioritizing battery space. This upcoming phone might feature the biggest battery ever seen in an iPhone. And honestly, it desperately needs it. Powering a rumored 7.8-inch main display alongside Apple Intelligence features constantly running in the background will drain power fast. Nobody wants their phone dying by lunchtime just because Siri is trying to summarize notifications into complete nonsense. By entering the foldable market so late, Apple gets a massive advantage. They let Samsung, Google, OnePlus, and Honor spend half a decade figuring out what users absolutely hate about these devices. They let the competition deal with the complaints about heavy hinges, visible screen creases, terrible dust resistance, awkward battery anxiety, and poorly scaled apps. This is the classic Apple playbook. Critics always mock them for being late to the party, but Apple prefers to arrive when the market is mature. They did it with OLED screens, larger phone sizes, home screen widgets, and the always-on display. Every single time, Android users scream that they had it first, but normal consumers simply do not care. Once Apple enters a category, the entire industry shifts. Carriers advertise it differently, accessory makers flood the market, and app developers finally take the form factor seriously. There are also strong rumors that Touch ID is making a comeback on this device, built right into the side power button. This makes perfect sense from an engineering Standpoint. Fitting Face ID sensors into a super-thin folding chassis is incredibly difficult. Plus, side-mounted Touch ID works beautifully on devices like the iPad, making it quick and convenient when the phone is lying flat on a desk. The only ironic part is that Apple's most premium, expensive phone might come with technically older biometric tech. Speaking of expense, the rumored price tag is sitting around $2,000. That is a jaw-dropping number. It is hard to imagine how an Apple Store employee will even say that out loud with a straight face. At that price, you don't just need Apple Care, you need emotional support. Yet, despite the astronomical price, this phone is going to sell incredibly well. It won't replace the standard iPhone overnight, but the demand from content creators, tech enthusiasts, business professionals, and die-hard Apple fans will be massive. The main hurdle Apple faces now is software. If Apple just stretches normal iOS apps onto a massive 7.8-inch screen, the device will feel pointless. They need true, robust multitasking. Right now, running 2 apps at the same time on an iPhone feels practically illegal because the software discourages it. Furthermore, a screen that big starts to heavily invade iPad mini territory. Apple has a history of cannibalizing its own products, so they will need to be very careful with how they position this device in their lineup. If these rumors about high repairability turn out to be true, Apple needs to shout it from the rooftops. They shouldn't bury this information deep inside a 70-page environmental PDF on their website. They should actively show off the modularity, demonstrate hinge replacements, and prove to the world that a $2,000 investment won't turn into a piece of broken glass after one accidental drop. We already know that iPhone internals look beautiful because Apple's engineering teams are borderline obsessive about neatness. Seeing that level of perfectionism, applied to a complex folding mechanism, is going to make for some legendary teardown videos. The foldable future is getting closer every day, and it is going to be wild. If you liked the video, subscribe, share the video, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.